An 8-year-old girl came to see me with her mom at my studio. Her parents had recently separated, and the dad decided to leave and move abroad. The mom had recently found out that she has cancer. The mom was worried because the little girl said she hated her dad. She refused to take any of his calls and declared that she never wanted to see her dad again. In that very first session, I began asking her questions about what had happened between her and her dad. She had a hard time looking at me, and she felt uneasy, so I asked her to sit on the floor with me and gave her a pad and asked her if she wanted to draw. She began drawing while I was talking to her. Her drawings were dark and intense, an indication, I thought, of how she felt. We began slowly by acknowledging her feelings and letting them out. And she began acknowledging how angry she was with her dad for leaving. Then we began looking at memories she had with her dad. And although she said that her dad did not love her, when she began to remember how it felt when they spent time together, when they played together, when I asked her to look at his face and see how he looked at her, and asked, "Does your dad really not love you?" the hatred she claimed to softened. When remembering how it felt to be with her dad, she could no longer deny his love for her. Then we began looking at two possible futures. One with her dad not in her life, and her constantly rejecting him, and one with her dad in her life. She chose to take his next call, and call by call she began being present to his love and open up. She chose to forgive her dad and let him back into her life. When guided to notice how it felt, she knew what was right for her. 16 and a half years ago, I remember walking out of the hospital. My daughter was bundled up like a dolma and in my arms. I was so excited and happy, and my heart was beating fast. But I was also scared. I remember thinking in that moment, oh my God, I have never really felt fear before this moment in my life. I had her life in my arms. All of a sudden, she felt heavy. And I was clear that the weight I felt came from a deep responsibility, a knowledge that I had to change, I had to grow up fast, and I had to do my best for her. And the truth was, I did not know how. I was 27 at the time and still felt like a kid, unlike Scarlett, who's ready to take up the world. So I began looking. I read a bunch of parenting books, studied self-awareness for years, then studied mindfulness and did whatever other courses I could find. I never got all the answers, but there were some things that started to become clear, certain unhealthy behaviors we practice as parents. The first one that I noticed that I did and many parents did is that we sometimes unknowingly bully our children to behave the way we want them to behave and confuse that with loving them. In the name of love, we sometimes force our children to become who we think they should become. I also noticed that especially when other people are watching, when they make us look bad, we shame them. And we sometimes guilt trip them by pointing out to what is right and what is wrong, what they did wrong, and blaming them, hoping that they will feel bad enough to never do that again, which if you're a parent, you know it does not work. It usually results in them repeating that behavior. So what I began to realize is that as parents, we think that pointing out to what is right and what is wrong is actually teaching them. But does it really teach them anything, or does it just leave them with a negative self-image? A contemporary philosopher and a humanitarian, Werner Erhard, said that when we accept people exactly the way they are and exactly the way they're not, we give them the space to be and become whoever they wish to become, and that this is love. In the beginning, I was like, okay, I get that in romantic relationships. I mean, I want that. But in parenting, How do we parent responsibly if we love kids that way? We give them the space to be and become whoever. I mean, isn't that dangerous to love them that way? How would they learn if we, let's say, love them when they repeatedly hit others? Eventually, I got it. I got that love is either present or is not. And that when I judge my daughter, when I'm angry, when I'm frustrated, when I rush her, love is not present. And then I began looking at the environment she was growing up in. How much of the time we spend at home is love actually present? Out of the time you spend with your children, what percentage of that time is love actually palpably present? Thinking about all that led me to a realization. I had an aha moment. I realized that if every time my daughter failed to behave in a commendable way, or if she even just behaved horribly, if I took responsibility by declaring that, you know what, I have yet to train or teach my daughter not to do that, or make room for that, or understand that, or have compassion for that, then that could be a new, mindful way to parent. Think about it. If every time our children misbehave according to us, when they lie, when they're untidy, when they don't do their homework, when they bully other kids, if we took responsibility for all the things we have not yet trained them in, then all the anger, the upset, the unrealistic expectations we bestow upon them and ourselves to be perfect, to behave, to understand, and all the shame and guilt we feel and make them feel, and all the fear they feel when we take our love away would disappear. When my daughter was 4 years old, she began hitting and throwing things when she did not get her way. I would lovingly tell her that this is not okay. I would ask her to stop, which she would. And then I would ask her to apologize, which she would, and then she would do it again. And it became standard process that whenever she didn't get her way, she would hit or throw things. And even the grown-ups around her, even though they would yell at her sometimes even, she would always apologize. And then she would do it again. So in the space of love and free from judgment, I declared that I have yet to train my daughter not to throw or hit things. So what I then did with Estella was to let her see, let her feel out for herself the impact of her own actions. We were watching a video she liked on YouTube, a song. And we had already agreed that after the video ended, we would brush teeth and go to bed. So the song ends. She asks to see it again. I say no. She grabs a toy and throws it at me. We were really close, so it hit me on the nose and it started bleeding. I began tearing from the pain. She looked at me, she started crying. I stayed still. I let her feel it out. We need to do that. We need to give them the space to witness their own emotional reaction to what they just did. So a few moments later, I held her and I said, Estella, do you think it's time that you learn how not to throw or hit things? She said, yes, Mommy. And I said, okay, so what do you think we should do about it? And she was 4, but in a very determined way, she said, if I ever do this again, no juice, no TV, and nothing sweet for a day. And I said, Estella, are you sure? She said, yes, Mommy. And so that led to an agreement that she put on the table. So next day, even, we're in the living room. She picks up a toy and throws it on the glass and looks at me. And they will do this. They will test you. And I said, Estella, you know what this means, right? She said, yes. I picked her up, and we honored our agreement. And you need to do that. That part is important. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And Estella did not have juice, nor watch TV, nor had anything sweet that day. That was the last time she ever threw anything or hit anyone. When allowed to witness the impact of their own actions and feel it out, they know what is right and what is wrong for them. So then I was sure How we guide our children is we have them look within. We teach them to be mindful, to notice how it feels and trust that. And that became the basis of my creating my mindful parenting courses. Think about it. When you acted out, if you stopped, did you not know right from wrong? Times when you lied or were harsh with people or belittled people, did it not feel bad? Did you not know? We always know our heartfelt feelings never lie. We were just never taught to actually listen and follow that guidance. Or worse, we were taught to ignore it. A 10-year-old boy started coming to my classes. After 3-4 sessions of mindfulness and self-awareness, it came up that his parents were separated and his dad immediately moved into another relationship and was soon expecting a child. The boy refused to spend the night at his dad's house and would only meet with his dad if his dad came to see him at his mom's house. Because he said he hated his dad's new partner, was disgusted by the baby that was about to be born, and that baby would never, ever be his sibling. We began by acknowledging his feelings and acknowledging how hard it must have been for him to accept all that had happened. When he was ready, we began noticing how it felt to hold the position he was currently holding against his dad, and how it would feel to only see his dad for only a few hours a month, and miss holidays and Christmas and birthdays, and whether he believed that the relationship with his dad would stay the same if he took this path. Then I shared how my daughter has a half-sister, how they played together and how my daughter teaches her, and how happy I am that she has somebody to count on long-term. And then we began filling out a future of him having a sibling to play with and teach and guide. He came to class one day and said that there was no longer a problem with him spending the night at his dad's house. And he began to notice how much effort his dad's new partner was putting in the two of them getting along. And he was so proud and excited when he came to class one day and said that he was the only one that could comfort the newborn baby by holding her in his arms. When guided to fill it out, he chose love. We're disconnected from our heart, and maybe this is a true epidemic of humanity. Our heart is always where the answer is. For any questions in life, big or small, what we should do with our lives, like Cameron proved. Whether we should let somebody in our lives or not. Whether what we're about to do or what we just did is right or wrong. Whether it's time to move on from something. Our heartfelt feelings never lie. Our heart is our compass. So if you're having a hard time as a parent, and you're doubting yourself, look within, trust your heart. Your heartfelt feelings are our compass, not our thoughts. So look for a way to parent that feels good in your heart, and learn to stop when it doesn't, and look harder. We don't need to do anything else. They have the best guide in the world, their heart. Their heart is the one and only compass custom-made just for them, for their path, for what they came here to do. The one that if we teach them to follow, will allow them to find their own way to happiness. So don't judge your children. Don't tell them what is right and what is wrong. Don't shame or guilt trip them. Don't put your beliefs on them. Teach them to listen to their heart. Set them free by showing them that the compass to their own life lies within them, and that they are the person they need to trust. And yes, maybe then we will be part of them creating a better world, a world that feels right, one of peace and love and happiness. Thank you.